It takes a lot of talent and a lot of work to build a successful company.
Oh, everybody touches.
And it only takes one person to take it apart brick by brick.
I don't want to cause any trouble.
There are employees who are attracted to a hostile work environment. If the work culture isn't abusive, they will manipulate and devalue the staff one by one.
I am afraid to be around him.
They take what functions and make it dysfunctional. Instead of good employees finding ways to be effective, they're finding ways to cope and survive. Who is responsible for workplace conflicts, low productivity, and high turnover? What's more, who hired this person? Who enabled this person? Organizations need to build an open company culture, and that takes time and extensive training. Ongoing education should be viewed as company support and not punishment. It is time to shine a light on abuse in the workplace. To begin, we all have prejudices that are based on a myriad of factors. Discrimination is dislike and comes from prejudice. Harassment is an action or comment that an employee finds offensive. Harassment and discrimination are forms of workplace abuse. Whether intentional or not, destructive behaviors undermine the constructive work you put into your company, and it runs rampant in so many organizations. Though it seems obvious and is written in most manuals, we should never treat a group of people less favorably than others. And if we're not aware of our behavior, it is the responsibility of management to train and insist on respectful and civil engagement. While all Americans have freedom of speech and expression, a company has every right to maintain an environment of decency, free from offensive symbols and remarks, and all forms of abuse. According to the law, it is illegal to discriminate in any aspect of employment in the workplace. Let's take a look at the two main areas.
Hiring and firing. Compensation or pay rate, job assignment, or classification of employees. Job transfers, promotions, or layoffs. Job postings. Recruitment practices. Job or promotion testing or assessments. Use of company facilities such as bathrooms or conference room. Training and apprenticeship programs. Employee benefit eligibility. Vacation, sick, and other paid and unpaid leave arrangements. Harassment on the basis of any protected class like national origin or race. Retaliation against an individual for filing a charge of discrimination. Employment decisions based on stereotypes or assumptions about the abilities, traits, or performance of individuals of protected classes. Denying employment opportunities to a person because of marriage to, or association with, an individual of a protected class, like being married to someone who is disabled.
Let's explore racial discrimination and sex discrimination. Racial discrimination is unacceptable, illegal, and a drain on company morale and resources. Common examples include treating an employee differently based on race, limiting employees of a certain race to particular jobs, making decisions based on race, and not hiring a qualified person based on their race. It is useful to know the qualities of a racist.
They think some races are better than others. They think all members of a race have specific qualities. They make snap judgments when they meet someone. They treat certain races differently than others. They talk differently about races when they're not present.
Take a moment and recall a time you may have acted racist towards someone. Educate yourself by noticing stereotypes when you encounter them. Question your use of snap judgments. And be aware of racial injustice. If someone at work says a racial slur, take these steps.
Stay calm and don't show you're upset. Take a deep breath and silently count to 10. Ignore the comment with a blank expression and change the topic. Avoid editorializing if they persist. Say excuse me and walk away slowly. Document the incident. Let management train the abuser. Keep a healthy self-image and find constructive ways to relieve tension.
Sex discrimination, or gender discrimination, is when an employee is treated differently from other employees due to his or her sex or gender identity. Making a presumption based on one's sex, whether intentional or unintentional, is called gender stereotyping. Legally, when joining an organization, people do not have to inform anyone of their sexual orientation. Let their merits speak for themselves. It's been shown that diverse and inclusive workplaces are more innovative and profitable. Show customers that your company is about progress. It's about the inclusion of all cultures. It's about maintaining the highest standards and breaking the glass ceiling to promote minorities and women to the highest positions. As we will discuss later, you can start by providing staff policies, handbooks, and procedures. Reevaluate your hiring process, its biases, and the questions you ask. That's just for starters. There's more. Harassment in the workplace is unwelcome conduct from a manager, coworker, vendor, or customer whose actions, communication, or behavior mocks, demeans, disparages, or ridicules an employee. Several forms of harassment are threats, intimidation, and physical assaults. Harassment can be discriminatory and becomes unlawful when the words or actions become so severe that it creates a hostile work environment for the victim. This behavior is more commonly known as workplace bullying. Bullying is defined as unwelcome behavior intended to harm someone who feels powerless to respond. It is not true that all victims of bullies are loners or outcasts. Actually, they're usually popular employees who are creative, ethical, and honest, and pose a threat to the bully's status, social standing, and being in control. You may be targeted because of your gender, age, race, sexual orientation, or religion, but they especially enjoy ridiculing one's physical appearance and thrive on isolating employees and making verbal threats. Chaos, social cliques, and the destruction of teams is the goal. The result is a broken team dealing with anxiety, depression, fear, and post-traumatic symptoms. It is the responsibility of the employer to ensure all employees are treated fairly. But what if the bully is the manager? Do you remain silent, or do you handle it directly? Being mean and bullying in and of themselves are not necessarily unlawful unless they are discriminatory. So if an event occurs, take a moment to consider if you're being too sensitive, or perhaps took it the wrong way. People's reputations and livelihoods are at stake, so please be cautious and consider if the abuse was severe enough to take action. If so, take these steps.
Accept that you are upset, but want to act rationally. Consider the costs and benefits of reacting. Explain, in measured words, how their comments make you feel. Engage the person in a brief, but amiable discussion. Express appreciation, if they would stop that behavior. Change the subject or leave slowly without emotion or words. Document your bullying or discrimination experience. Email your second request for the behavior to stop if it persists. Report the incident and include documentation if the behavior continues. Elevate your situation by filing an EEO complaint if management does not resolve the conflict.
There is incentive for companies to take this matter seriously. Workplace bullying impacts 60.3 million Americans every year, diminishes mental efficiency up to 50%, and adversely affects your customers. Simply, it can poison your company culture. But the bigger question is, who deserves this type of treatment? Sexual harassment knows no gender and occurs whenever unwelcome conduct on the basis of gender affects a person's job. There are two categories.
Harassment that results in a tangible employment action, or quid pro quo, caused by a supervisor or one that can influence employment actions. A hostile environment resulting from the gender-based unwelcome conduct of supervisors, coworkers, customers, vendors, or anyone else with whom the victimized employee interacts on the job.
Some people are not aware of their actions and mean no harm. However, there are those very skilled at making their actions seem accidental. Despite one's intentions, no employee has to tolerate unwelcome contact or conduct.
Discussing sexual activities or commenting on sexual attributes. Telling off-color jokes or using demeaning and offensive language. Caressing or massaging someone without their consent. Unnecessary touching, or using indecent gestures. Standing too close so as to cause contact with someone. Brushing against another person's body, as if pretending to squeeze by. Sabotaging the victim's work. Engaging in hostile physical contact. Granting job favors to those who participate in consensual sexual activity.
And because the victims are fearful of losing their job, the perpetrators never face the consequences of their actions. Does this seem right to you? At the core of harassment and discrimination is abuse. And if unchecked, the workplace could be a breeding ground for jealousy, insecurity, pettiness, envy, and overcompetitiveness. Often, the result is emotional or physical harm, and has no place in a civil and respectful environment. But it is important to understand why people abuse. You can't change the abuser, but by broadening your view of the problem, you can control your own behavior when in an abusive situation. There are 7 forms of abuse: mental, verbal, emotional, physical, sexual, financial, and spiritual.
They were abused. They grew up with an addict. They have anger issues. They have control issues. They have a different perspective of right and wrong. They don't understand boundaries. They are afraid, exhausted, or defensive. They lack empathy.
Abusers were once children and perhaps wounded by events. Some took it to heart, internalized, and reacted. Others were able to let it go. But now they are adults who can take the necessary steps to heal. In the meantime, they should not be allowed to disrespect the rights of another and cause emotional or physical harm. Pain that can cause permanent scars. It must also be said that every employee must not let abuse affect their self-esteem with feelings of guilt or shame, nor live in a state of fear. Use the energy of controlled anger to right a wrong. Lift up the employee manual and tell the abuser how it affects you and you would like it to stop. Document the incident and meet with your manager if the situation doesn't improve. And remember, true leadership is void of abusive actions. Let's put all of this into perspective. Discrimination is prohibited by federal and state laws. Discriminatory behavior treats workers unfairly because of their race, ethnicity, gender, age, sexual orientation, disability, or religion. Unfair actions include harassment, retaliation, hiring, firing, job assignments, promotions, disciplinary actions, pay, and benefits. Harassment and discrimination decreases productivity and lowers morale. The effects can be emotional, physical, and social. How can a company condone such behavior? How can a manager look the other way, hoping it will go away? How can employees be expected to perform at their best when an abuser is violating their dignity? Companies need to repel abuse in all its forms. Everyone should know the law. What you don't know can hurt you. Companies should want a unified workplace instead of daily strife or an ongoing legal battle. Simply put, if the behavior is not stopped, it will continue and perhaps accelerate. Good behavior role modeling starts at the top. Inexperienced or inefficient managers must be trained. Cliques must not be allowed in any organization. The goal is to value everyone in your employ. It's as simple as making a list of your problems, make appropriate changes, lead by example, and hold everyone accountable from the top down. And all this begins with the hiring and training practices. We're now going to create a set of practices that address the many faces of harassment and discrimination. It all begins with the hiring process, especially the potential bias of the interviewer. Unconscious bias is when individuals make judgments influenced by gender, race, or other prohibited factors. These biases include
Tendency to connect with an applicant who shares similar interests. You are looking for a qualified worker, not a personal friend. Tendency to draw conclusions about an applicant based on your own personal beliefs and prejudices. Tendency to put an applicant on a pedestal after learning their impressive achievements. Tendency to prefer an applicant of one gender over another. Tendency to have a poor view of applicants that are older people. Tendency to judge an applicant with certain names or accents. Tendency to believe an attractive applicant is more successful. Tendency to judge an applicant who is significantly shorter or taller than most of their staff.
Keep these biases in mind when creating job descriptions, job postings, reviewing resumes, interviewing applicants, evaluating applicants, and hiring applicants. If your hiring is based on a gut feeling, you may be hiring on the basis of unconscious bias. It can pose a legal risk if you are unwittingly discriminating against those who are different from you. Ensure your employee manual and policies have a documentation process for performance evaluations and compensation, and have a progressive discipline policy. Conduct a survey to learn about the conflicts and disparages in your workplace. Create policies that fully address harassment and discrimination. Ensure your employee manual lists federal and state laws, as well as company statements on diversity and inclusion. Keep current labor law posters posted on bulletin boards. Create ongoing civility and diversity training programs for every manager and employee. Consider hiring a diversity coach or lecturer. Peruse online training resources and engage the workplace with productive relationships. Your well-thought policies can actually be more protective of employees than the law. Monitor workplace interactions to ensure employees are not unconsciously perpetuating stereotypes or making judgments based on knee-jerk reactions. The goal is to expand your perspective, keep open your impressions, and make decisions based on correct data, information that is verifiable. To keep the company sustainable, humane measures must be taken to correct behavior unbecoming of a collaborative and kind workplace. In closing, we are all human beings with attributes and flaws. There are those who want to get along, and there are those who want conflict and chaos. Common decency is the key to good relations and mutual respect. When we miss the mark, it is up to our colleagues to speak up and support corrective behavior. By understanding and respecting people from every culture, you can increase empathy and appreciation for other perspectives, gather creative ideas, improve listening, and become more adaptable. Here are ways you can widen your acceptance.
Identify the knowledge and skills you want to acquire. Research to better understand cultural similarities and differences. Learn to communicate using short, clear sentences. Avoid slang when writing or speaking. Discuss obstacles to overcome and possible challenges to explore. Learn what each culture considers respectful and polite behavior. Create goals to build effective cross-culture team building. Listen with an open mind. Be open to everyone's ideas.
Remember, every conversation is a learning opportunity. Unconscious biases, which include favorable and unfavorable assessments, are learned assumptions, beliefs, or attitudes that we may not even be aware of. Even though an unconscious bias is a normal part of our brain function, it affects the way we think and act. It can affect how we interact with coworkers and make business decisions. Unconscious biases are mental shortcuts that can help you make decisions. If unaddressed, they can have a negative impact in the workplace. If you challenge each of your unconscious biases, you and your company can attract diverse talent. Decisions will be fair, creativity and innovation will be encouraged, employee engagement will improve, productivity will rise, and company revenue will increase. It is essential that everyone interact in a healthy manner. It is one thing to celebrate diversity. It is another to realize cultural competency. To succeed in this global economy, we must examine our personal worldview and biases. Organizations with high diversity report up to 19% higher revenues compared to companies with lower diversity levels. Education may well reduce conflicts, harassment, and turnover. It is imperative we establish a culture of respect to foster a healthy and safe work environment. All this requires us to examine our social roles and values, knowing that other people have diverse ways of thinking and doing. Support virtual inclusivity.